Hi there, my name is Mark. I'm going to show you how I used a couple of ChatGPT prompts to create a campaign for my level 1 players to go through, along with the adventures. And I'm just going to give you some additional information from my previous video that I excluded, just for the sake of brevity. So this video is probably going to be a bit longer because I'm going to talk through my whole thought process and how I did it. If you haven't seen the other video, essentially what you do is you create you use the first prompt to create the campaign overview, which is just a big skeleton of the campaign itself, which this is what it looks like. It just gives a very brief, each adventure just gets a single line objective, a couple of key events and subplots, and you use this document then to feed to the adventure generation prompt, which will create the individual adventures. So you would say, here's the campaign document, please create the first adventure, and the adventure prompt will take a look at this. It will keep in mind the overarching campaign, and it will, create an adventure that fits in with what you need. So in this particular case, I've created this, I've run this through, and it created a campaign for me. This is what the campaign looks like. The campaign that it came up with is called The Echoes of Eternity. And the goal is for it the players need to prevent the echo from breaking free and consuming the world. Sorry about that. So you can see here it has 7 adventures in it. Each adventure has, first there's investigating the strange disappearances and phenomena. The next one is delving into an ancient ruin and uncovering some secrets. The next one is tracking down the whispered ones to prevent them from obtaining the second key. The next one is finding the third key from a temple. The 5th one is forming alliances to battle the whispered ones. The next one is confront the Echo's herald and thwart their plans. And then the final one is, final seal, prevent the Echo's release by sealing the prison forever. And then down below we have our subplots, and it lists about a cursed artifact linked to the Echo, finding that, find a member of the Order of the Eternal Vigil is secretly working with the Whispered Ones, undermining the party's efforts, and the party learns of a lost heir to the Order of the Eternal Vigil, whose bloodline holds the key to bolstering the prison's seals. And then, of course, it lists out the important groups. Whispered Ones are, the bad guys. The Order of the Eternal Vigil is the good guys. Sorry. Then there's the Harpers in here, and then there's the Lost Heir. And it even mentions who their name is and things like that. So here's the thing is that this creates a very good structure for you to start from. And it even gives you, a bunch of the details that you might want. However, as a dungeon master, you may not be able to wing it as well as maybe you want to be more prepared. Maybe you're a beginner DM or intermediate DM, whatever, and you just don't want to have to wing it as much. You want to have a lot more information for you at your fingertips. So a couple of things here to keep in mind is that, for one, using this prompt is great. And as you can see, it gives you a bunch of this information. However, if you put this prompt in, you can always ask ChatGPT what else it might want. So if I were to put this in and ask ChatGPT, here's your prompt, what other information do you need to create a good campaign for me? It will ask you a number of questions, and it'll say, hey, what about you tell me where the setting is? How about you tell me more about the players? In this case, I just told it, this is just for level 1 characters. It'll ask you, how about you tell me more about the characters and their background, and their levels? How about you tell me, are there any themes that you want involved? Are there any reoccurring NPCs? Are there any landmarks or things you want to include? What's the scope and the scale of the campaign? It'll ask you a number of questions. So what you can do is you can either, put in this prompt and ask it to ask you for questions, what clarifying questions it has. Another thing you could do is I created a separate document for my campaign where I already had a setting in mind. So I had a town already named. I had already created a map, so I already knew the landmarks. I knew the town. I had NPCs in mind. So I provided that to the prompt, and I said, this is the setting that I want to use. And also I created another document that had the players in it. So their names, their levels, their background. And it makes use of that as well. So that's a super important things that you can do to make this give you better, more reliable or more, customized response as opposed to this one where each time I run it, it'll come up with a whole different crazy adventure, um, which may or may not be what you're looking for, right? So you can give it the all of the information that I've just mentioned. You can provide it with a lot more detail to give it more of what you need. Now the other thing is that after it gives you a prompt like this, or rather it gives you the output here, for me, this outline is good. It's great, but there are still a number of things here that it doesn't give you, and you might want. So, for example, it talks about this ancient malevolent entity known as the Echo. Okay, what is the Echo? Like, what does it look like? What is its function? Where is it being kept? Why is it being trapped? Why was it trapped? Uh, you know, uh, the other thing is down here. It mentions this group of um, the whispered ones. Okay, well, why are the whispered ones trying to break it out? Why, what's their motivation? How many members are there? Who are their leaders? That kind of thing. How do they work? Maybe they're all monks, maybe they're all wizards, maybe they're a mix, maybe who's the leader? There's so much more information you can find out about this that you can ask for. So, like, specifically, I'll just take you through an example of, let's find out more about the whispered ones. So what you can do is, in your prompt, so this is the output that it gave me, right? Um, Actually, sorry, this is for the adventure that it created. So I will take a look at the campaign story arc. So if we look at this, the campaign that it created, and it gave us the output here for the campaign, I can specifically say, you know, uh, let's talk. So, we can specifically say, let's talk a little bit more about the whispered ones. I want to come up with some ideas of who they are, their motivations, and who their leader is. And it will give you some ideas. So, you could even say, I don't like, I don't know how much you've used ChatGPT, but you can certainly tell it, I don't like this guy's name. How about we rename him? I don't like his background. How about we come up with a new background? In fact, after it's come up with this information here, I can just tell it to regenerate the whole thing. I don't like any of this. Go ahead and regenerate it. Give me a new one. And it'll do it all over again. What you can do then is you can take this document and you put it in with your campaign information, right? So after you've come up with this, put it in with your campaign information. Not only put it in with your campaign information, like just for your own notes, but you can then use it to feed into the prompts, right? So if you've come up with this here and, for example, if I were to include this document with the generate an adventure, what it might do is it might say, okay, here's your adventure. First adventure, the players meet Seraphis Darkwhisper, which, as you can see, he's the leader of the Whispered Ones. And it's great that ChatGPT is going to use that information that I gave it, but I don't want them to meet this person in the first adventure. This is like, he's the leader. I don't want him to meet the leader in the first one. So I will specifically tell it, modify the adventure. Let's not meet him, and it'll say, okay, let's meet somebody else. Let's take that out. Let's do something different. But you can see that it'll make use of this information to move the story along, which is terrific. And the more detail you give it, the better, your story integration is going to be, and the more rich your, the experience is going to be as you go. So, for example, in my particular case, the campaign that I had created for my players included essentially it was a cult, and they're trying to sacrifice some fey creatures, and it led me down this whole rabbit hole of figuring out why would they want to do that, who's the leader, why is the leader doing this, and it turns out I came up with a whole story of it's to remove a curse from his wife so his wife will be saved. A whole moral dilemma that the players may end up with as they go through the story to figure out why he's doing what he's doing. And then it even came up with ideas for why low-level NPCs are joining the cult. What about the other leaders? Why are they following him, right? How did he become the leader? All that kind of stuff. And when you've got all those details, then it's much easier for you when you play through the adventure that if for some reason the players go off the rails and they happen into the cult headquarters on accident, or they, totally, you just have to improvise something, and it turns out they meet a cult leader or a cult member. You have all that information already for you, so you know how the cult member is going to respond and what their motivations are, and what they might be thinking and doing. So that's the thing. So that's the really cool thing about the campaign and kind of doing the world building. Now the other part though is with the adventure itself. So if I take a look again at that adventure that it created, whoops, I'm sorry, I keep going to the wrong thing. If I look at the adventure, so here's the adventure that it created, and it creates this adventure, and it's fine. In fact, here I'll do the preview here for it. Whoops. I will copy it here, and I will just paste it into the viewer so we can view it a little easier. But if we look at this adventure, it created this adventure, has a number of scenes in it. It's fine, but there's additional information in here that it also doesn't give you. And just like the campaign guideline, if you may want a lot more detail for what is happening in this specific adventure. So here's a couple of specific examples. In this adventure, a couple of the things that I always look at are it includes some puzzles, and it includes some clues, some puzzles and clues, and some traps. Now, sometimes the trap or the puzzle might be a little bit too vague, right? So even in this particular case, it says there is a puzzle that is cryptic symbols. Deciphering the symbols requires piecing together clues found throughout the village and the farmhouse. And it says, great. That's terrific. I appreciate you telling me that there should be a puzzle there, but it doesn't tell me what it is. What symbols? What are they piecing together? What clues are they piecing together to find the solution? So what you might want to specifically do, and what I have done, is I have said, this is great, but what symbols are going to be there? And then that even led me to, if there are symbols here, and the symbols are related to in this case, the result related to the whispering group, whatever, the bad guys, how are the symbols related to them? So in my particular case, the cult that I was dealing with in my campaign, their symbol was a hand and an orb. So when I had a puzzle that was similar to this, the symbols had to include that, those two, the hand and the orb, along with other things for the players to figure out the solution. So yeah, that just knowing the solution and knowing what the puzzle looks like will, be much easier for you than having to just wing it on the spur of the moment to figure out what that is. The other thing is that the traps, a lot of times it might just say, so like here's one, hidden symbols, perception checks, great. Sometimes it might just say, there's traps. It might even list a number of traps, or it might say there's a pitfall and there's an arrow trap and something else as the players enter the headquarters, or what they enter the castle, and that's not specific enough for you. You might want to either get rid of some of those traps or give better indicators as to where they are, how the players might come across them. It does do a pretty good job here. As you can see, it gives the DC for a bunch of this stuff for skill checks, which is terrific. Another thing that it might do is, I don't see it in this particular adventure, I don't think, but a lot of times it will just say the players encounter a group of enemies, 5 skeletons and 3 zombies and a gargoyle. And okay, I don't know that we need that many. I don't know how those are related to the story at all, because the story in this particular case is about the whispered ones, which might not have undead at all in it, and certainly not a gargoyle. So why is that in there? So you may want it to tweak those, adjust the number. And when you do, one really cool thing about ChatGPT is the number of instruction, all the books that it has, that it already knows. So it will actually, if you tell it, please change that to just skeletons. Give me just 4 skeletons. It will give you not only, it'll say, all right, let's tweak that to 4 skeletons. It will also output the DMG for the skeletons. And in a lot of cases, it'll put the DMG page number in the description here in the adventure. So it'll say the players will come across 4 skeletons, Monster Manual, page 44 or something like that, right? And it'll just tell you where to find it. And you can even have the stat box already printed out for you here with your adventure, so you don't even have to go looking for them. Okay, I think that's pretty much all the rambling that I was going to do here. The only other thing I think that is important is, just like I said in the first one, to make a good use of these prompts is after the end of your adventure, be sure to create a summary of what the players did, including NPCs they met, things that individuals did. So, for example, what I might even do, depending on how far off the rails the players have gone, I might actually take a look at the first adventure and just tweak it. So, in other words, I would take this specific document and I would take out the NPC knowledge and I would say, scene number one, the players met with Elira, who explained to them the recent troubles. She mentioned whispers of shadowy group and strange symbols. Just reword it, right? If nothing else happened in that scene, cool, that's good enough. And then here for the investigative phase here, I might say, for gathering the detailed accounts, the first player, Malik, he succeeded in talking to this NPC, who I had to create on the fly, or maybe you could even ask it to create a couple of these NPCs right here before you even run the adventure. But you can tell it, Malik met with Jeremy Thornwhistle and got the detailed accounts, and then they talked him into coming along into the adventure. So you want to include him along with a couple of these other points here of where he went and how he was involved, because the next adventure, it will make use of that person. It might do a callback to Jeremy Thornwhistle shows up again, or maybe in one of these adventures it says someone is kidnapped. It might be that guy, which will be a good callback. So be sure to include a summary. I would even include a summary of all of the previous adventures when you create one adventure. So in other words, when you go to run the third adventure, to create the third adventure rather, provide the summary from the first two adventures, just for reference, so that it knows the players have gone through the first two adventures and here's what they did in those. Maybe there's a pattern there. Maybe there's something that they regularly do. Maybe they've been returning to the same NPC over and over, or they've been pulling the same NPC into their adventure each time, and it'll just say, hey, let's just include him or her a little bit more. In any event, hopefully this was a little bit helpful. I know that I just kind of rambled for a little bit, but that's kind of my thinking behind this is make use of the prompt, but then customize it, tweak it, get the output that you want. In my particular case, for my campaign, I ended up with like 30 pages of documents. And then the first adventure was like 15 pages of, the outline along with the NPCs, along with, et cetera, all the other things, which was very helpful because then I had kind of an answer and I had a really good idea of the overall campaign already because I'd gone through the whole process of creating it and having it all organized. Anyways, I hope this was helpful for someone out there, and drop me a line if you have any questions or feedback. Thanks.